This is a very random Gold's Gym in the far east of Russia, in the border town of Blagoveshchensk. This is a border town because roughly 4 miles from where we're currently standing now runs the legendary Amur River, which marks the border between Russia and China, one of the most fascinating and most remote borders in the history of borders, in one of the most remote corners of the world. And in today's video, you've guessed it, it's that very border that we're gonna try and cross. Today, we're attempting China.
Everyone that knows me knows that I am a geography nerd. I spend the entirety of my free time studying the most remote corners of the world, learning about unrecognized countries and fascinating border areas, including enclaves and exclaves. One of the borders that I've always been very curious about is the border between Russia and China, a border that runs along coordinates that are millions and millions of kilometers away from the Italian peninsula that I grew up in. I remember being a kid and reading about the legendary Amur River that marks the border between two countries that, for the most part, couldn't be more different from each other, as it's this very Amur River that separates two different cultures, two different languages, two different alphabets, and two very different cities, separating the Russian city of Blagoveshchensk from the Chinese town of Heihe.
Obviously, since we're so close to China, this is no more the European part of Russia, right? The area where we're at now is the far east of Russia, and apparently here in the far east of Russia, they are yet to invent sidewalks, which is obviously making it a bit difficult for me to fulfill my first task of the day, which was going to be going to the river walk, the very nice boardwalk along the Amur River, from which you can see China from here, from the Russian side. But I'm thinking that I might need to get a taxi. Добрый день. Честно говоря, не надо в точную точку, просто я хочу набережную. Я хочу посмотреть Китай. Оттуда можно посмотреть Китай, да? Ну да, хорошо. Right, guys, I just got on this taxi to go, as I was telling you, to the river walk near Kitai, where we can see, from where we'll be able to see China. And obviously we're so close, we're basically in Asia, right? I was going to say that we are close to Asia, but we're actually in Asia. And we're that close to China, we're that close to Japan, and actually most of the cars that you see in this part of Russia are actually imported second-hand from Japan, and that's the reason why you will see that the majority of cars have got the wheels on the right-hand side. Even though in Russia, obviously, you drive on the same direction, on the same side of the road as you do in Europe, which is very interesting to think about, right?
О, вот уже видно российские флаги, на другой стороне видно китайский. Вау, и там колесо? Колесо где находится? Да. Уже в Китае, да?
А там колесо горит, типа, внутри ночи.
О, так должно быть красиво, понимаю. А, вот это памятник Ленину, да?
Да, памятник.
О, вау. В Китае на другой стороне Ленина нету, да? Как здесь в России. Наверное, там памятники Мао Цзэдунга или Яо Минга. Рахмет, да, по-узбекски?
Да, рахмет.
Рахмет, спасибо, до свидания, удачи.
Thanks ever so much to the very kind Uzbek taxi driver who has taken us to the river walk along the Amur River of Blagoveshchensk. What the hell is an Uzbek taxi driver doing in the far east of Russia? That's random AF. But thanks ever so much to him, because thanks to him we can now lay our eyes on what is our main target for today's video. Today's video is going to be a bit different from usual, because we're not going to have to travel too many kilometers across frozen lands today, because our main goal, I can actually see it now, our destination is just a couple of 100 meters down the road. Look at it! I'm now standing on the Russian side of the border. This is the Amur River. This is the frozen Amur River. And on the other side is China. You can see the Chinese flag waving high just on the other side of the river. And our actual goal is going to be obviously going to try and check in before nightfall in Heihe, which is the name of the town across the river from Blagoveshchensk. And what is interesting is that, according to my research, the hotel that I was eyeing to spend the night at and to be able to give an address to the border guards is actually one of those buildings over there. So we can actually see our hotel where we want to go. It's just that it's gonna take us a few hours. And crossing the border is not going to be easy indeed, because you can see that the Amur River is frozen at this time of the year, which actually makes the border crossing possible, because in the other seasons there's no bridge that was ever built between Blagoveshchensk and Heihe. So there are two ways that we can go from Russia to China, or the other way around even. So you can do it the legal way. So you can go to the station, to the river station, to the Rечной Vokzal of Blagoveshchensk, which is a couple of kilometers down that way, and you can jump on one of the few buses that every day go back and forth between Russia and China. The other way is to do it illegally, basically, which would be very easy to do. So you would just need to jump around this fence right here. I realize that there's barbed wire, but what you can do is just, as long as you're able to get to the river, then you can just walk across it. And it doesn't look like there's anyone to stop you from doing that, really. And obviously you guys know me very well, so you know which of the two options I'm going for, right? We're going to do it the illegal way. No, I'm kidding. We're going to do everything legal. Can you imagine trying to do it the illegal way? Illegally exiting Russia and just as illegally trying to enter China. That would be madness. We're not that mad, right?
It was still going to be a pretty mad experience though, as my dear viewers should know, there is no bridge that connects Russia with China across the Amur River. So what usually happens in the warmer seasons is that people can make the crossing on a ferry. But the far east of Russia is one of the coldest areas of the world, and the Amur River does freeze up in winter. So what happens is that they have a freaking bus that goes back and forth between Blagoveshchensk and Heihe, riding across the freaking frozen freaking river. How freaking cool is that?
So I don't think I want to spend too much time around here. It's a bit risky. I want to try and see if I can have lunch at one of the many Chinese restaurants around Blagoveshchensk, and when we next come back to the Amur River will be when we try and eventually make the crossing, which won't be easy at all. Well, first and foremost because we're going to hop on a freaking bus on a frozen river, and that's already something. And second of all, obviously we, Italians, we don't need a visa to enter China, but I've been here in Blagoveshchensk for some time and I was speaking to people, and everybody was telling me that it's very likely that even Chinese border guards will have no idea of what the requirements are going to be for Italian citizens to enter their own country, and it's very possible that I will be rejected. It's also possible that maybe the Russians will let me out, but the Chinese will not let me in. But my visa to Russia is single entry, meaning that if I exit Russia and I'm not able to enter China, I won't be able to go back into Russia. So I will be a little bit like Tom Hanks in The Terminal, right? So we'll basically be stuck, but not at the JFK airport of New York, but I will be stuck on top of a frozen river on the border between Siberia and the Russian Far East. Can you imagine? And I would really hope, if that's the case, that all the diplomatic missions of this world will be able to come and save me in time before the season comes for the Amur River to melt, because otherwise the ice is gonna melt away and I'm gonna drown amidst the waters of the Amur River. Let's hope that that won't happen. It's so interesting because you can really see two different worlds colliding here in Blagoveshchensk. You've got the Soviet world and you've got the Chinese one. You can see the Sovietness of this mosaic, which seems to be depicting the nativity scene, right? Because you've got two figures, two adult figures, and you've got a figure of a small kid. And the reason why I'm saying that these worlds are colliding is because right next to this mosaic, you've got one of the Chinese restaurants that I was telling you about. This is the Cafe Panda. Just the right name for a Chinese cafe, right? It says there in Cyrillic, Cafe Китайской кухни. And then you've also got some Chinese characters over there where you also see the usual Chinese lanterns. The same lanterns that you see below any Chinese restaurant that you see even in Europe. So let's go and have a taste of the Chinese cuisine here in Blagoveshchensk. To be completely honest, what I just said about two different words colliding here in Blagoveshchensk and Heihe is not entirely true, because I mean obviously we're right at the border, but the line of separation between the two cities, the two towns and the two countries are much starker than you would imagine, and they're much starker than what we're used to in Europe, for example. So if you take the areas around the border between Finland and Russia, you've got a lot of Russians living in Finland, and you've got a lot of Karelians and Finnish people living in Russia. If you take the border between Georgia and Azerbaijan, you've got a lot of Azeris living in Georgia, and vice versa. But here, Blagoveshchensk is still 95% of Russian ethnicity, and the only people of non-Russian ethnicity are mostly people from Central Asia, so Uzbeks and Kyrgyz. And it's the same in China. On the other side of the river, you barely have any Russian living there. And also the other thing that I've noticed is that, you know how usually around border areas you've got cars with a foreign number plate? It's not the case here in Blagoveshchensk. So all cars here in the Russian town on this side of the border have got Russian number plates, and I haven't seen a single Chinese car. The reason for that is that obviously, as I was telling you, the only way to cross the Amur River is by bus. So you can't even ride your own vehicle across the border. Спасибо вам большое. Man, this just has to be one of the biggest plates that I've seen in my life. Oh my god. I've gone for noodles just because I wanted to play safe, really. I don't want my stomach to play any kind of dirt tricks with me. Well, I will be stuck trying to convince the Chinese border guards to let me in, even if I don't have a visa. And also I'm thinking that I need more of a gradual approach to what is Chinese cuisine. I'm sure that by the time that we get to Heihe, we'll get a chance to experience Chinese cuisine, a type of Chinese cuisine that is much more hardcore than this. So I think this one is just perfect to get started. Right now I'm officially defeated by these Chinese noodles right here. China 1, Dave 0. I hope we're gonna fix the situation by the time that we get to the border in a couple of hours time. Oh my god. Oh, I've eaten so much and I've still got half of these noodles left on my plate, and I feel so full, and I barely slept anything last night because of the jet lag. Man, I'm really struggling. I'm really physically struggling now. Я считаю, что это самое большое, которое я видел.
В Китае большие порции.
Да?
Да,
Тоже в Китае будут большие.
Да,
О,
да.
блин. Ну, понравилось, но слишком большое. Я вам попрошу шот, если можно,
Да,
пожалуйста.
хорошо.
Спасибо. Man, I really feel like I want to go for a nap now. I feel like I want to find a hotel and just fall asleep like that. But no, instead we gotta go and cross one of the most difficult borders that we've ever crossed in our lives.
Just as I was leaving the restaurant for the direction of the port, which was where the bus to China was scheduled to leave from, I bumped into an interesting character.
Вы живете в Благовещенске или...
Благовещенска 30 лет.
30 лет живете здесь?
Да, здесь 30
О,
лет.
Вау, я сейчас в Heihe.
Сейчас поехали.
Да. Сейчас пойду в вокзал и куплю билеты и все.
На 30, номер 30.
До
до таможни.
До таможни. Но я
30.
могу пешком.
I was lucky enough to bump into a random Chinese who spoke Russian with quite the noticeable Chinese accent.
Ты где живете? Где живете?
Не знаю где. Вы знаете гостиницу?
У нас, у меня сестра. Heihe, много дома. 150 юаней ночи.
Хотите контакт?
А WeChat есть?
This kind gentleman was generous enough to share with me the contact of his sister who lived in Heihe. I was very worried at the thought of entering China for the very first time in my young life due to the language barrier, so this would definitely reassure, in part, my fidgety self.
Но может, что они хотят проверять. Немного итальянцев через эту границу, наверное, проходят. Может, что у них вопросы есть. Да?
Ты скажи, ты же турист, ты же
да,
гуляешь.
да.
Как есть, как скажешь, я турист, я...
Да, и проблем не буду.
Да,
Хорошо.
проблем не будет.
Ага.
У нас тоже сейчас китайский,
Да.
сюда тоже много спрашивают тоже. Ну все, рада тебя видеть.
Да, на
WeChat.
связи. Мы будем на связи.
Всё,
Хорошо.
давай, друга, давай.
Спасибо, до свидания.
Well, that was absolutely fantastic, wasn't it? Finally, we've met a single Chinese person who has been living here for over 30 years.
In the meanwhile, we've managed to come back to the Naberezhna, to the river walk of Blagoveshchensk, where we can see actually the pole with the Russian flag just opposite to the Chinese, to the massive Chinese flag on the other side. And the best thing about us meeting this very kind Chinese person, he gave us the contact of his sister, who's living on the other side of the river. His sister lives in China, lives in Heihe, and the best thing is that he assured us that his sister will be able to help us out if we were to have any problem in crossing the border or just navigating the dodgy streets of Heihe, which are not very dodgy per se, but they're going to be dodgy for us because we don't speak the language. So we're now going towards the Tamozhne, towards the place where we can formalize the border crossing. And let's see what's gonna happen. Oh China, here we come! 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 And we've made it indeed to the Blagoveshchensk Rechnoy Vokzal, the river station of this town on the Chinese border. You can also see that we've got some ads that are starting to appear about facial lifting. Now let's go up here where it says Vkhod in Russian and something in Chinese, and let's ask for a ticket to China. Добрый день. Я хочу в Heihe. Просто предупредили, что может, что даже китайцы не знают, что не надо больше виза.
Ну, Сербия выезжала у нас.
Сербия, и им тоже с 1 декабря. Ну, хорошо тогда. Прямо, там только пограничный контроль, да? Хорошо. Замечательно. Спасибо вам большое. До свидания. Very good news, boys. We've got ourselves a ticket going from Blagoveshchensk to Heihe. You can actually see it here. I'm just holding my ticket like this because obviously I don't want to dox myself. But it's very good news. What is even better news is that I've heard of other foreigners doing the trip from Russia to China. According to the very kind lady who sold me this ticket, a couple of Serbian citizens have gone through the border between Blagoveshchensk and Heihe.
At this point, filming became more and more increasingly difficult as I was just about to enter a sensitive area. Inside the terminal was a passport controller like any other, really, which I passed successfully, and I was then made to wait before boarding the bus that would soon leave to take me across the river to China.
Well, we have successfully been stamped out of Russia, meaning that we have now officially left Russia, and we've only got the Chinese border guards between us and the complete fulfillment of our mission. We're now basically waiting at what is the gate of this River station here in Blagoveshchensk. Again, it's interesting to see that the vast majority of passengers is Chinese.
You've got two types of buses that go back and forth between Blagoveshchensk and Heihe. You've got one that is run by the Russians, and you've got the other one which is run by the Chinese. And there's a bit of separation going on, because each nationality is allowed to board their bus only, so you will have Chinese travelers going on the Chinese bus, and you will have Russian nationals on the Russian bus. And for third country nationals like myself, well, I guess they never had to deal with an Italian before, and they put me on the Russian bus, as was evident by the Russian flag on the side of the bus and by the fact that I was traveling with a bunch of holiday makers from Blagoveshchensk.
Что я читал, я думаю, что скоро будет весна, да, поэтому лед тает.
The waters of the Amur River would indeed soon thaw and open up for summer navigation, but for the moment, the ice of the river was still thick enough to allow a freaking bus to ride on it. Across two separate countries in an adventure that surely reminded me of the great explorers of the past that we old geography nerds surely look up to in great admiration. We officially crossed the border at the halfway point of the bridge when we saw the first Chinese flag, but everything was happening so fast and it would have been without a doubt undoubtedly very senseless to risk filming too much, and in a couple of minutes we reached the land once again, this time on the Chinese side. And then passport control happened and it was absolutely fine. They had never seen an Italian before at that specific border control, but the Chinese border guards were very nice, and most importantly, they were very much aware that Italians do not need a visa to enter their great country. Oh, I was so happy, man, at the thought of having just crossed one of the most fascinating borders out there. The problem was that I was now in China and internet wouldn't work, just like Google Maps, and I had no signal, I had no way of getting to the hotel, I had no way of contacting the sister of the Chinese guy that I had met a couple of hours before, and I was stuck. But thankfully there were these two guys that I had met on the bus from Blagoveshchensk who were very kind in helping me out. They knew their way around Heihe, they offered me a ride on their taxi and told me that their hotel was apparently a good place to stay. I love making friends on the Russian-Chinese border at this time of the year.
А здесь люди говорят на русском? Ну, можно найти.
В основном эти торговцы всякие, типа там купи, продай.
Ну,
У них такой
те, которые работают с туризмом. Понял. While we keep hearing the sounds of this random dude snapping a rope very randomly in the middle of the street, I wanted to, come back to the place where it all started this morning and take a moment to rejoice, right? I can't freaking believe it, we're in China, man. Oh my god, I feel so out of place. I don't understand anything of what is going on around me. And it is such an uncomfortable feeling, like it's crazy. I'm so grateful to the two Russian dudes, Vasily and Dima, the two dudes that I've met on the bus. Thanks to them I was able to check in at a random hotel here in Heihe, and thanks to them I was also able to go and have some lunch. They have just now gone back to the hotel, whereas I wanted to come here where it all started just to film my outro for this video. It all started here a few hours ago, right here on the frozen Amur River, with the only difference that a few hours ago we were just on the other side of the river. There is Russia and there is Blagoveshchensk, and this very frozen river, we've crossed it, and we've crossed it successfully. Wow, how crazy was that? Guys, I'll see you next time. North Korea is not that far off now, right?